Episode of Pilfered Pyramid Podcast. It is a very basic conspiracy podcast where we're going to be talking about, a single subject and trying our best to go and do the research in front of you. Give you a good showing of what we know based on not the research itself, and then based on the research as well. Let's start off with a little bit of a dab here. Well, I think I gave that just a one too many moments on its own. That's a shame. Um, hmm. Well, so what we're going to be talking about today is adrenochrome. And I know a little bit about adrenochrome. Not personally. Actually, for what it's worth, I did have an epinephrine shot at one point. So I guess I do know a little bit of something about it. But I imagine that was more than likely a high batch synthetic adrenochrome, and by that I mean a high batch synthetic epinephrine, which is what adrenochrome is. But we'll get into that in a moment. And both of these things are both just adrenaline. And or it was more than likely from an animal source, which, I'd prefer, that I not just receive a human sourced epinephrine shot, even if that would be more beneficial to me. And as a point of interest, you might get an epinephrine shot for swelling in your back, which is what I got it for. So, I would say it's a very valuable drug for a couple of things, as well as for swelling in your, neck when you're having a allergic reaction that's going to kill you. Which is what, obviously, an allergy shot is, or a quick-acting allergy shot is, versus something like a corticosteroid-style allergy shot. So, let's see here. We're going to go ahead and just move on over. And by that, I mean we're going to go to a few things that I've already kind of brought up here, and we'll kind of go from there. So, we've got here on DuckDuckGo a initial, look at what is adrenochrome. So what I mean by an initial look at, I mean what the public is initially allowed to view when seeing adrenochrome. And unfortunately, I, didn't do a lot of research, so we're probably going to only be brushing the surface here. I mean, I can tell you small things that I might know, but really we'll go and we'll research as we go. And unfortunately, for something like adrenochrome, I bet if you were to go into some kind of there might be some mention of it, but you might have to decipher it. It might be in a different text. They might have not called it adrenochrome. And what text those would be that would actually be using something like the adrenaline gland of a human? Well, that's a great question. So point is, we're going to go ahead. Let's just start off. Let's look, so what is it saying? First off, adrenochrome, chemical compound, blah, blah. These things are important if you wanted to actually create the compound, I suppose. Produced by the oxidation of adrenaline. Now, that is important. Because what adrenaline is literally something that is taken from the adrenal gland from, an animal. And the adrenal gland is generally the kidney, as I understand it. Probably should just go look up adrenal too and have that up here. And but so adrenaline generally is a lot easier to derive from a source which is not synthetic, as we'll see in a moment. But okay, the derivative carbozochrome, carbozochrome. Obviously carbon, zinc, and no, I don't know what a chrome is. You know, sometimes you can tell what things are in the name. But anyway, hemostatic medication. Not quite sure what they mean by a hemostatic medication. I guess reduction in swelling or an increase in blood flow. Despite a similarity in chemical names, is unrelated to chrome or chromium. Oh, well, that's interesting. So what I was trying to do with the derivative carbozochrome wouldn't have mattered anyway. Okay, so that doesn't tell you very much, but it gives you a start. If you were a adept chemist, you know, there you are. You should be able to make yourself a piece of adrenochrome. You'd have to make it actually in bulk. We'll see that in a moment, though. All right, so as we go, we're just going to go down the list and kind of look at things, look at what they say, look at how they pose things. So first off, we've got, you know, what is adrenochrome? QAnon, blood harvesting conspiracy. And oddly enough, we have a shop adrenochrome because, you know, it's an ad. But what is adrenochrome? QAnon blood harvesting conspiracy. Well, first off, it's not blood harvesting, right? I mean, that's clear. It's adrenaline harvesting. Okay, so we've already, you know, can see that there's something a little bit wrong with the way that they're posing that. So let's see, what else have we got here? We've got, you know, the Wikipedia, and then we've got a series of videos on YouTube, all of them. Celebrities losing their minds in quarantine. QAnon, are conspiracy theories becoming a deadly threat? Again, an odd way to pose something when somebody's first looking at something. And women says she infiltrated gangs to get answers about her, and this is something we'll look at later, about a mother who believes that her daughter was attacked and, you know, used for the sourcing of adrenochrome. Okay, so adrenochrome is a chemical compound, molecular formula, produced by the oxidation. I guess we can go to the Wikipedia real quick. And we'll see that it's also known as epinephrine. I'm sorry, this is the adrenaline. We'll go to adrenochrome real quickly. Adrenochrome is a chemical compound, oxidation of adrenaline, or epinephrine. And we can even go to somewhere that tells us how to do the oxidation. It's not very difficult, apparently. The derivative is a hemostatic medication, but it's not. Adrenochrome is not. Despite its similarity in chemical names, all right, learned that already. In vivo, adrenochrome is synthesized by the oxidation of adrenaline. In vitro, silver oxide is used as an oxidizing agent. In solution, adrenochrome is pink. Further oxidation of the compound causes it to polymerize into brown or black melanin compounds. So, if you do ever, for whatever reason, are taking epinephrine and are oxidizing it, if you get it to brown or black, you've gone too far, huh? Alright, well, effects on the brain. Several small-scale studies. Triggered psychotic reactions, such as thought order and derealization. Claim that adrenochrome is a neurotoxic psychotomimetic substance and may play a role in schizophrenia and other mental illnesses. Yeah, I did see that in one of the things we're going to look at later. what they call the adrenochrome hypothesis. They speculated that megadoses of vitamin C and niacin could cure schizophrenia by reducing brain adrenochrome. That's interesting. So, I mean, talking about some of the conspiracy theories related to adrenochrome and the use of it in like Hollywood, it's a little hard to believe that, you know, they would have such a willingness to cause themselves such heavy levels of schizophrenia. But, you know, they could also maybe treat it. So, treatment of schizophrenia, blah, blah. Okay, so adrenochrome is unscheduled? Really? It is not an approved drug product? Oh, I guess because they constantly they'll use epinephrine, not adrenochrome, and if produced as a diet, it must comply. How interesting, huh? So just so that we're clear, one more time, that adrenochrome is just oxidized adrenaline or epinephrine. So the idea that, you know, I believe at least that adrenaline is a drug that you're not allowed to, you know, that's a class something drug. Alright, maybe they'll tell us actually in medical uses. As a medication, it's used as a number of conditions, including anaphylaxis, cardiac arrest, and superficial bleeding. Inhaled adrenaline may be used to improve the symptoms of croup. It may also be used for asthma when other treatments are not effective. It's interesting. It is given intravenously by injection into a muscle, by inhalation, or by injection just under the skin. Common side effects include shakiness, anxiety, and sweating. Fast heart rate, high blood pressure may occur occasionally. May result in an abnormal heart rhythm. While the safety of its use, pregnancy is unclear. Benefits of the mother must be taken into account. A case has been made for the use of adrenaline infusion in place for the widely accepted treatment of inotropes for preterm infants with clinical cardiovascular compromise. Although there is sufficient data which strongly recommends adrenaline infusions as a viable treatment, more trials are needed in order to conclusively determine whether these infusions will successfully reduce morbidity and mortality rates among preterm cardiovascularly compromised infants. Basically, it makes it easier for their hearts to pump. Okay, legal status. It is prescription only. A prescription drug, yes. So adrenochrome, however, is not. That's very interesting, just as a point. Alright, so adrenaline, epinephrine, oxidized, becomes adrenochrome. It's not as easy to unoxidize something, I suppose. Let's go real quick. We could look at this for a moment and just decide whether or not, you know, what they're saying about schizophrenia, whether it's right or wrong. So, adrenochrome is the cause of schizophrenia. Investigation of some deductions from this hypothesis. And a little bit before maybe adrenochrome was in vogue in this current era. And adrenochrome, for what it's worth, has been in vogue since, you know, the 60s or 70s when it was used in A Clockwork Orange, where before, you know, a night of what did they call it? Ultraviolence. A night of ultraviolence. They would have adrenochrome to get themselves kind of in the mood. And that was, of course, at the Malaco Plus bar. You know, the one that had all of the women tables that, you know, were all naked. What work that would have been to actually have a bunch of naked women as the tables there. Of course, probably wouldn't have worked. Anyway, and that's why they probably just had, you know, the plastic and with the color of their, you know, pubic hair and their hair being like pinks and stuff. It's very weird. All right. Osmonds and Smithies. Good reason for reviving the view originally put forward by Bleuler. Interesting. This is in 52. That schizophrenia is essentially a disorder of metabolism. Wow. That's interesting. And have suggested that some substances chemically related to mescaline. Really? It's mescaline, huh? It might be the causative agent. Hoffer, Osmond, and Smithies have begun an investigation on this hypothesis and found that adrenochrome, an oxidation product of adrenaline, which is probably a normal intermediate metabolite, has active hallucinogenic properties. I didn't realize that. These authors do not regard adrenochrome as being unquestionably the toxic agent in schizophrenia, but suggest that it or some closely related substance having the indole ring and derived from adrenaline is involved. Okay, hold on. I need to not regard adrenochrome as being unquestionably the toxic agent, but suggest that it or some closely related substance having the indole ring. Okay, so the indole ring, we'd have to go look that up to know exactly what they're referencing in a chemical form. And derived from adrenaline is involved. Interesting. So they don't know if it's adrenochrome, but it's something that has the same ring as adrenochrome, and which, again, we can go to adrenochrome real quick. And, this is probably the indole ring, or this is the indole ring, one of the two. So these authors do not regard adrenochrome as unquestionably the indole ring. Okay, they also advance the opinion that metabolic fault consists of an overproduction of adrenochrome or similar substance. Such a view necessarily implies either overproduction of adrenaline or a blocking of one or more pathways of adrenaline detoxification in the body, which do not lead through adrenochrome. As adrenaline is derived from tyrosine, the hypothesis is essentially one of abnormal tyrosine metabolism. From this hypothesis, certain deductions can be made. I wonder why they reference the fact that adrenochrome has active hallucinogenic properties. Is that not a strange reference? I think that they must have been referencing that because people must have been using it to get high, right? And that's why they were having these abnormal levels of adrenochrome instead of actual metabolism problems. These doctors are just a little too stupid to even imagine that that's the case. Huh. Well, that's interesting. All right. So let's go on here. And here's the extreme the extreme edge where I haven't looked at it, but I'm willing to bet that there is very little evidence to what this person is saying. And unfortunately, they may be saying things that may be right or wrong, given the fact I haven't looked at it yet, but that they're going to be unfortunately saying things that are not referenced. There's no reference. So I mean, let's see. Please have someone close to me may be connected to the disappearance and murder of countless children. Yeah, see, I'll forget, and now he told me about a drug called Adrenochrome that produce a high beyond any other. And unlike those other drugs, there are no ill effects. Quite the contrary, blah, blah. Okay, so, but why isn't he, instead of doing this, the disappearance and murder of countless children, why isn't he just going and robbing a pharmacy for all their epinephrine and then doing the oxidation procedure, which is, where is that? Sorry, let's see here. A process for describing a preparation of adrenochrome comprising oxidizing adrenaline of a salt, therefore, with a persulfate, an aqueous medium, and a pH in the range of 4 to 8 in the presence of one or more water-soluble salts of bismuth. I'll tell you what, that ain't that hard to do. That really is not that hard to do, especially with such a huge pH range. So, and why isn't he just going, what you could do, I guess, if you're a sicko and, you need your adrenochrome to be from some tortured creature. I mean, you can torture a pig, and, they live for a long time because they got a lot of blood, I guess you're probably a weirdo and you're into, real strange stuff at some point. It's not good enough, right? You do that, you get the adrenochrome from a tortured pig, and then you go weirder. All right. So anyway, let's imagine that this person is just an idiot. Let's try to go on. He told me of a drug called blah blah blah, and unlike those other drugs, blah 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 blah. All right. Combine those with an intense sense of euphoria, and you have a substantial demand. And a host of other small effects, but not referencing the hallucination, because obviously there's hallucination. We just saw that in the last thing we were reading. Okay, so the issue is this: is the derivative of the chemicals produced by the human body when it is under intense, immeasurable fear. I don't think that's true. Adrenaline could be created through a whole series of production mechanisms. Probably one of the best would be like making them run or lift or something along those lines, or giving them some kind of precursor drug like testosterone or something. I don't know exactly how this would all play out, but I'm sure there's a lot better ways than getting them scared. That is to say, we should maybe go and look that up. What's the best way to get adrenaline to be produced by the human body? And, just a real, we can hop around real quick back to, adrenaline here, and I guess here. The hormone, medication, single cell, blah, blah, blood sugar level, output of heart, people, and blood sugar level. Does this by binding alpha and beta receptors. Probably should learn more about adrenaline in general myself. Adrenal medulla is a minor contribution to total circulating catecholamines, though it contributes over 90% of circulating adrenaline. Really? Where's the adrenal medulla? Adrenaline is found in other tissues, mostly in scattered. So this is following adrenalectomy. Adrenal disappears from the detection limit in the bloodstream. So this, whatever adrenalectomy is, that right there is what they want, huh? Of one or both adrenal glands. So adrenal glands, as I can remember them, are they above the kidney? Adrenal, the renal is the kidney. Huh. Okay, so pharmacodose of adrenal stimulant, adrenal receptors. So, exercise. One psychological stimulus to adrenaline secretion is exercise. Emotional response. Every emotional response is behavioral and automatic and hormonal. The hormonal is the release of adrenaline. Alright, so there you are, obviously contributing to higher levels of arousal due to fear. Adrenaline does have a role in facilitating the encoding of emotionally arousing events. Alright, so, they've got, their causal relationship that they are able to deem as being valid. Can't fight them on that. Is one better than the other? Surely if your intent was to get the most out of a creature, what you would do is not scare it into death, suckering the life out of it as you did that, you would actually give it huge amounts of things. And you would make it so powerful that you could almost like just set up a tap. That, you know, you can just hit it like it's like a maple tree. So, you know, unless the only thing that you can do is that adrenochrome to get, you know, everything in a massive, you know, quantity. If the way that you get adrenochrome is an adrenochrome, you then synthesize or you use or you know, derive the adrenochrome from, you know, the gland, because the gland is filled with it. Okay. Now you're talking about maybe in the same, you know, breath that I was saying before, you still might want to treat it like a cow, right? You get the adrenal gland to be as big as possible. And, you know, you get them on as much testosterone. You know, it's not the other way around where you scare them to death and then you cut their throat. But maybe. All right, so, you know, I'm just trying to make the devil's advocate, you know, thing for why maybe, you know, this whatever's about to be said here isn't, you know, completely potentially right. It's derived from a chemical produced by the human body. See, this is where I guess I don't like the way that at least this is posed. It's derivative, right? It is a derivative of the chemicals. I guess that's not wrong. Chemicals produced by the human body when it's under intense, immeasurable fear, or when it's working out, or when it's, you know, under some kind of huge pleasure stimulus, probably, or, you know, whenever you've got that feeling of that sweaty palms, you know. All right, so my former friend who confessed his involvement during a fleeting crisis of conscience. Why is this written like it's done by, you know, somebody who's trying to win a writing award? Insisted this was true and cited a number of dubious-looking studies and fake news sites. But then there were the photos. Why doesn't he have another comma? I know I'm cutting this apart in weird ways, but when you do the but, there's no reason to, like, you know, you can just write in the old English style with lots of commas and not as and you know, finishing your thought and having things connected by, you know, things in that nature. Anyway. Okay, so this is where this just becomes ridiculous, because he's saying there's photos, but he's saying he's not going to show them. So, I mean, the point of saying there's photos is worthless, you know. He didn't allow me to make copies for fear of implicating himself personally, but he'd been to a farm, he called it, in one of the Baltic states. There were photos of countless people, all seemingly under the age of 15. They were naked and chained to tables and walls and floors in a windowless room the size of a football stadium. Why would there be one massive windowless room the size of a football stadium? Don't you think seeing other people tortured around you would at least give you some sense of relief when they want to have them in their own little cubicles? Alright. I couldn't estimate how many there were. As he scrolled through the photographs, I debated killing him. How dumb is this? Right? And so, now, the problem with this is, alright, is that this is one of the, you know, this is adrenaline. This is one of the first things that comes up. Here. It's in the first 10. This is one of the first 10 things that you can search for and find on DuckDuckGo. So, I mean, let's go back to it. It's basically bad propaganda, right? Because it's so false in the way it's written, like by an English professor, almost. Or someone who will be in 10 years. You know? Because they don't have any real skills. Alright. Much less could they kill this person that they're talking about, probably. Okay, so as he scrolled through the photographs, and I debated killing him. Ah. Alright, I didn't even notice how badly that was written the first time. I saw masked men hovering over the victims and torturing them in the Baltic states. So when was this put down? 3 years ago. See, if this was done now, it would have been in Wuhan. You know? Now, is there potential adrenochrome harvesting of human beings in places? Even in Wuhan, maybe? Yes, it's completely possible. What a stupid thing for me to be able to say that I know better. Alright, so, okay, hold on. Where are we? It's kind of like cringy funny. Because it's almost trying to use, so the thing about what this is doing is it's making it so the potential of this happening on any kind of basis seems ludicrous. Because this wouldn't happen in this kind of situation with this many people, a farm or something like that. A farm would consist of a very small number of people so that it was so tight that you could get it done. It wouldn't be this thing. This is madness, and it's insane and ridiculous sounding. But what they're about to do that I just saw, which was, the worst were the mass graves, is kind of hint to maybe some images that you've seen from the Holocaust and kind of try to equate, some of these images so that you kind of think that this almost might make sense, or maybe give it some kind of a context that made sense. I don't know. That's what I feel like is coming. And that's from the perspective of somebody who's writing this like as a think piece, and not as an actual experience. Alright, so I debated kill him. As they were being tortured, their blood was being drained into containers. Okay, so we've just seen that adrenochrome is obviously 90% of it is housed inside of the adrenal gland, and that you take the adrenal gland and you would take it for a fun little ride in your adrenalectomy car, as we saw before, and you'd have an adrenal gland, right? And like it says right there, 90% of circulating adrenaline, it contributes. Now, whether or not it's contributing or it's storing the adrenal fluid, that is the adrenaline, that's a good question. But obviously, without the adrenal gland, there is no making of adrenaline. It's having to say this very oddly over and over again. So, basically, we're wondering why they are draining blood into containers. I mean, there's uses for blood, but you wouldn't drain it into containers. It would have to be drained through the use of a, you'd siphon it, and you'd have to have it so it never got oxidated, I mean, come on. We're talking about really weird things here. Okay, so other photos show the production facilities, enormous rooms that look like chemistry labs where the blood was filtered and the compounds were extracted. I mean, so what you're trying to say is that they're scaring the shit out of them, they're getting all the adrenaline to flow throughout their bodies, and they're cutting them and getting all the blood out of them. It's kind of legitimate, but I think that you would probably want the adrenal gland, like we showed before. And if anything, you'd want to tap the adrenal gland somehow. So you wouldn't be taking their blood. What you would be doing is you'd go in, you'd do a surgery where you literally stint it into the adrenal gland, so when the adrenaline filled blood or whatever it is that, comes out of the adrenal gland that actually, circulates adrenaline, um, started to flow, that it would just flow into some other thing. Yeah, none of it makes any sense. I still think that if they're doing something along these lines, well, I don't know. I don't know how they get adrenaline from animals. I mean, we can go look. Can adrenaline be made artificially? All right. So, adrenaline is commercially synthesized and sold as epinephrine. It's used as an intervention for acute allergic reactions that have become life-threatening. It's very useful for that, and can be used as well so I guess I've never really had adrenochrome because adrenaline or epinephrine is not adrenochrome. But anyway, epinephrine or epinephrine are two hormones secreted by the adrenal glands and obtained from animal sources. How do they obtain it, I wonder? Epinephrine is naturally secreted by the adrenal gland and the sympathetic nerve fibers. The hormone can be obtained via extraction from the adrenal glands of cattle and sheep. Via extraction? Okay. So, we're right. Via extraction from the adrenal glands. So they are doing an adrenalectomy, probably after killing the animal. And that is how they are getting the adrenaline or adrenochrome if they were to oxidize it. So, or it can be made in a laboratory. Synthetic production of epinephrine entails the reaction of catechol and chloroacetyl chloride. The product of this reaction is then combined with methylamine, and the resulting compound, called ketone, can then be reduced to yield commercially viable quantities of epinephrine. Commercially viable quantities of epinephrine. Excuse me. That's interesting. That's interesting. Product of this reaction is then combined with methylamine and resulting compound called ketone can then be reduced to yield commercially viable quantities of epinephrine. Commercially viable. Interesting. So why I think that's interesting is that it just seems like it wasn't, or it isn't commercially viable, or it probably wasn't for a grand amount of time. And so there's probably has been a long-standing use of animal adrenal glands in order to make epinephrine. So, I guess that answered a question, which was, how do they get it out of, an animal? And so this is why this is all kind of, this particular, story is kind of unwinding before our eyes. And that is that, they're saying that the blood was being drained into containers. So, maybe it was, but that wasn't for adrenochrome. The blood was being drained into containers, that's grand and all. They were using the plasmas maybe, blah, blah, blah. But after all that was done, okay, unless you're saying they needed that last 10% of that adrenochrome too. Or that adrenaline. I don't believe it. I think that, if you're some crazy psycho, and if we're to believe that you have a football stadium worth of people chained up to get your adrenochrome, that it would, not be that difficult to just torture them for a bit, cut their necks, and get their adrenaline glands out. Because that's how we get adrenochrome, or at least that's what they say, is how they get adrenaline currently from animals instead of when it's not being made synthetically. So, this particular story is just really starting to not hold a lot of good water. But, let's go on because it's kind of fun and stupid. By the way, adrenochrome has been something that, like I said, has been used since Clockwork Orange. It was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And in there, they also talk about extract of pineal gland, which, they don't really mention anything other than just to name it. But let's go on. I love as he scrolled through the photo, I debated killing him. That's so dumb. All right. So, I asked him when he was allowed to take these pictures. He said no one would believe it was happening, and he's been right. By the way, who is this guy? Who are you, and why is he so easily going to the Baltic area to deal with his farm concerns? All right. Rumors about facilities like this have been around for decades. Journalists have tried to report on it, only to be laughed out of their editor's office. One journalist, a Swede, came the closest to bringing it to the mainstream. He died along with his family in a hideous house fire. All right. Why isn't there a reference to that? Really, you want to really make this fucking have a punch? Even if it is fake, why not, since there is a journalist that was a Swedish journalist who died in a house fire with all of his family at some point, definitely. Why not go find that person and say they were doing this? And it's a lie. Like it seems like a lot of potentially this may be. But it at least punches it up. Alright, so listen to me. The pictures I saw were not fake. They were not staged. They were without any doubt real. Okay. Why didn't you get a single one of them? Alright. And there's one more thing. One more picture. Believe it if you want. I don't care. I need to get this off my chest. Yeah. Okay. Probably all that semen. Gotta get off your chest. Alright, anyway. There was an image of an adrenochrome users. Fuck me. Fuck me, man. Alright. I don't know what I expected. Well, I guess I do. Strung out, gaunt, miserable-looking addicts with despair and desperation in their eyes. It's what we've all associated with drug users thanks to heroin and crack and whatnot. Yeah, but that's because most drug users that would use a drug that... But see, adrenochrome is for hallucination, apparently, as we've seen earlier. Alright, so this is different. The image was a lavish conference room in a skyscraper where I could not determine. Syringes of the drug were sitting on a gilded plate on a thick table of polished wood. I don't like the idea of that. I don't like the idea that, somewhere they can't figure out a way to take it some other way than to have to shove it into their veins. But I guess when I had to take epinephrine, they had to give me a shot. Yeah, I guess at least that part's reasonable. I recognize the faces sitting around that table. World leaders, entertainers, religious icons. Oh, God. See, it's things like this that just make... when you just want to make something fun. Alright, anyway. And it's about something that might be actually real and a problem. It really makes things really muddled. Past the point of any real return. Alright, all grinning, all happy, all ready for their injection. Ready for their injection? Shouldn't they know how to do it themselves? Surely they do this at home by themselves. They don't always have a doctor present. Seeing those familiar faces was the initial shock. It wasn't the final one. Oh, God, I don't know. Alright, on the far side of the table, almost too small to be seen, was still unmistakable, was an iconic head of state. A recent one. He was laughing as he reached for his syringe. But there was something... So, an iconic head of state, a recent one. And he might be referencing Obama. Small pink self. It's small. I don't know who they're referencing. Who's a small head of state. It's very strange. All right, but there was something unusual about his hand. It wasn't. It's normal. Right. Right. Great time to have a mistake in your writing. Small pink self. It wasn't. It's normal. Oh, see, it's just bad writing. It wasn't normal. Small or the right color. It was green. That's how you say that, you jackass. All right. It was webbed. It was clawed. It was reptilian. All right. That's lame. Read more. What is this? What could there be more to read? Is there more? Is there ever more to read? Unsettling stories. Yeah. No. I wasn't expecting reptilians. That's because it's stupid. Oh God, this is so dumb. You all suck. All right. So that's not a great story. Let's see if there's a better one. So, woman claims missing daughter was tortured for the drug adrenochrome. All right, so Sherry said she was devoted her life to searching for her daughter, Jessie Grace, who had been missing from Wenatchee, Washington, since June 20th of 2016, so, I mean, fairly recently. And Wenatchee, I have been to. I live in Washington. Wenatchee, I could imagine this girl being killed and just being removed from, things and not have it be this, but who knows. She claims she even infiltrated gangs to learn new information. Have a story Dr. Phil won't believe. My investigation revealed that this is all linked to a ritual, Sherry says on Tuesday's episode. I believe that Jessie was tortured for the drug adrenochrome. All right, adrenochrome is a chemical that our body produces when we're extremely fearful or have a lot of distress. It gives you strength, it gives you vitality, and the people that killed Jessie are harvesting that from other people. All right. Woman claims local police are corrupt and botched investigation into daughter's disappearance. In the video above, hear more of what Sherry says about her daughter's death, and hear blah 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 blah. All right, so I think I've got the rest of that over here. All right. Oh, it's the same stupid thing, huh? That's funny. I just copied Dr. Phil's stuff word for word. Since I don't know whether or not they're going to just ding us if we watch the video, we're probably not going to. But, very interesting. If you have any information about Jessie Grace, please contact the... So, I mean, she's not like... That's a shame. She's not joking. She'd like an answer. Alright, so here was another one of the things. Oh, it's one of the first, right? Yeah, it's like the first. It's the what is adrenochrome, the QAnon thing. Alright, so here's a way to just, QAnon is a new way to just make everything look stupid. Just say, oh, well, it's QAnon. That's what's spreading it, or that's what it's based on, and it's just a way to discredit everything for no causal reason and just to apply a label onto something that makes it causally weaker. Doesn't make sense, but all right. So, excuse me. QAnon is spreading a bizarre and dangerous theory about a drug called adrenochrome. No, it's not real. What? What's not real? What's not real? But that hasn't stopped QAnon's followers from irresponsibly sharing misinformation about blood harvesting, Hollywood elites, and more. What's not real, though? The dangerous conspiracy theory, right? But they're trying to pretend like, what, adrenochrome isn't real? Let's find out. All right. QAnon followers are spreading a false and dangerous conspiracy theory about a drug called adrenochrome. See, that's the weird thing. The way they're saying that is that they're trying to say like adrenochrome is part of the conspiracy theory. The theory suggests that liberal politicians and Hollywood elites are harvesting the blood of children. That's not at all what someone that's in the know, like I guess the people who have just watched these last 50 minutes would say. They would say that more than likely they're not harvesting the blood, but more than likely they're harvesting the adrenal gland, because that's where we get the extraction of adrenaline from. For its psychedelic and life-extending benefits, well, we do know that adrenochrome does have psychedelic effects, and we do know that epinephrine, at least, does have potential health benefits. All right. While completely untrue, the theory is widespread. So, well, it is a psychedelic, and it does have life-extending benefits. The theory is widespread, and QAnon followers now count themselves among members of Congress. So, alright, so far right-wing QAnon are spreading a dangerous conspiracy theory that the blood of kidnapped children is being harvested by liberal elites for a drug called adrenochrome, which they say offers a psychedelic experience and even holds a promise of immortality for those who take it. For all we know, it very well may. We don't know. I don't know what the research is on constant use of adrenaline or adrenochrome. Probably would make your little heart explode, huh? While that may sound patently ridiculous, the adrenochrome conspiracy theory has now made its way beyond the bloodshot eyes of YouTube investigators and into mainstream culture, such as when Dr. Phil featured a woman on his show claiming their daughter had been kidnapped and tortured for the chemical. And if you're wondering why it's important to pay attention to this sort of thing, well, let's start with the fact that more than 24 congressional candidates have shared QAnon material or even appeared on QAnon shows. Like it or not, there are signs that the group's influence is growing. Alright, so here we go, finally. Let's explain what adrenochrome is. What QAnon wants you to believe it is, but it definitely not, and what's the harm in believing in such information. Alright, so it's a byproduct of adrenaline. Alright, so are they just going to really lie? Hold on. That's it? It turns out you don't need to kidnap children and drain their blood? There are many trusted chemical suppliers, in fact, which won't be linking to. Sorry, they sell it. Back in the 50s, scientists speculated that adrenochrome caused schizophrenia. Take a megadose of vitamin C when research concluded the adrenochrome along with schizophrenia should vanish. That didn't work, alas. Well, you don't know if someone during the timing. But the lack of real science didn't stop adrenochrome from sounding cool enough to make it into drug-lit classics like Aldous Huxley's The Door of Perception and Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange. Yeah, probably for good reason, you dumbass. It's probably why it's in there. And you're saying that it doesn't have any psychedelic effects. Are you serious? And you're trying to say it's a byproduct of adrenaline. Well, where do you get adrenaline from? You get adrenaline from the adrenal gland of a living creature. It has to come from there, or it's synthetically made, as we've shown earlier, but only commercially viably made in huge quantities after the reduction of ketone. So, what are we talking about? What are we talking about here? Can you explain to me what we're talking about? All right, I'm sorry. We haven't gone to the last one. Maybe it does say that it is a psychedelic and that it does, epinephrine at the very least, or adrenaline, does have life-extending properties. The source of the myth that you need to steal adrenochrome from a corpse goes back to a fun scene in Fear. A fun scene? That's a fun scene, huh? Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, in which Dr. Gonzo Hunter S. Thompson's attorney says adrenochrome makes pure masculine seem like ginger beer. Which, for all we know, it may. I've never had adrenochrome. Later, it is explained that there's only one source for this stuff. The adrenal gland from a living body. If he just said body, he'd be right, because you can get it from pigs. You can get it from a lot of different creatures, I'm sure. I think we'd get it from pigs and beef, for the most part. It's an easy mistake to make, but please know that Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is not a documentary feature made from an archival footage of actual events. How do you think we get adrenochrome? How do you think we get adrenaline? I don't understand. In short, QAnon followers believe there is an operative in a deep state called Q, and Q leaves. Why do you need to explain what QAnon is? Called Q drop. Some of the Q is none other than JFK Jr. All right, alive today and not supposed to. October drop is Trump. All right, a central conspiracy theory circulating within QAnon movement is that deep state Satan worshipping pedophilic liberals are behind an international child sex trafficking ring. Oh, that's a hard one to decipher, huh? Deep state Satan worshipping pedophilic liberals. Well, it doesn't have to be liberals, first off. They do need to be Satan worshipping, though, and by Satan we maybe mean Moloch Baal. That is Moloch and the god Baal, mixed together, Moloch Baal, which is, usually what they'll worship when they go to do their covenant of cremation in, what is that fine place in the Californias that they've ruined? Bohemian Grove. So when they, go and worship Moloch Baal, burning an effigy of a child, it's maybe not pedophilic, and they are very liberal in the way that they act while they're there, apparently being very gay, according to, and you can be gay, that's your business, but it is a very liberal form, I suppose. According to Nixon, that they're all very gay there. You can go look that up. That's a funny line. Are behind an international child sex trafficking ring. Well, I mean, if we go to what Jeffrey Epstein and, what little bit we got to get revealed after his, indictment and then arrest, it's pretty obvious that there is some kind of child sex trafficking ring in some function, at least in some kind of function. It's not insane, and to say that the people who go to Bohemian Grove and worship Moloch Baal and do a cremation of care, which is the burning of an effigy, one would hope, of a child. Well, that is international. It is Satan worshipping. The child is right. I don't know if sex trafficking ring is a portion of it, but it may be. But okay, so let's try to continue. All right, says Joseph Pierre, the acting chief of mental health community care systems at the VA Greater Los Angeles Healthcare System. At the Veteran Affairs Greater Los Angeles. So this is just some asshole who is a super liberal and has to talk to people who are probably pretty conservative because they're all these veterans. And, they're all worried about their kids and about kids in general probably getting fucked over by weirdos like the guy who's making this statement. Supposedly, anyway. Allegedly, that's the word you use. A more fringe aspect of that theory is that they are harvesting adrenochrome from children and then self-administering it as a kind of fountain of youth potion. So that's fringe, and the other one's not fringe. Do you agree with the other one then? I'm kind of confused. To hear it in their own words is reported by Right Wing Watch. The conspiracy theorist Liz Crokin says in a video, adrenochrome is a drug that the elites love. It comes from children. It doesn't have to. It could come from anyone. The drug is extracted from the pituitary gland of a tortured child. Is that what the adrenal gland is? Is it the pituitary? No. Are they talking about the pituitary, like up here? The pineal? What's the pituitary gland? Of tortured children. It's sold on the black market. It's the drug of the elites. It's their favorite drug. Okay. You don't know that. You don't know that. Alright, other QAnon conspiracy theorists, which again, we are not going to promote by linking here. Why not? Use adrenochrome to explain why there are so many missing children worldwide. You want to give me a reason why there are so many missing children worldwide, you fucking asshole? They also claim Hillary Clinton, former aide Huma Abedin, were caught on tape ripping off a child's face, wearing it as a mask, drinking the child's blood to obtain adrenochrome. Well, that's not how you obtain adrenochrome. Okay. So everything about this is madness. It seems like they're just trying to make things look as insane as possible without having any repercussions or anything to be said that's of value, that's good. All right. Why does it matter that anyone believes this conspiracy is real? The old saying, you should never attribute to malice, which can be explained as stupidity. Generous helping, blah, blah, kids typing in both conservative, Mr. Blah, blah, blah. What's the name about QAnons? Blah, 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 blah. My God. QAnon is that the conspiracy theory is targeting the party that's not in power. These kind of right-wing conspiracy theories more typically arise when a Democrat is in the White House. So maybe it's got nothing to do with the power that's in the White House, and it has to do with the powers that be, and that there might be an actual problem. All right. So here's where you can see that this guy is obviously out of his gourd. Believing that liberal elites are drinking dead child blood instead of just going to Oregon for shrooms may seem outrageous. They're not drinking dead child blood. They're having some kind of synthesized, adrenochrome. And they could just take epinephrine shots and, synthesize them through, the bismuth, salts that we were seeing before, and make their own adrenochrome and take it. So, that's a lot cleaner for what it's worth if it's just a shot than shrooms. Shrooms can be kind of a dirty thing to eat. So anyway, instead of just going to Oregon for shrooms may seem outrageous, but for some it's just one piece in a big puzzle that they're solving with their friends to take down the people they hate. What? It's very hard to decipher things when people make things that don't make any goddamn sense. Alright, so believing that liberal elites are drinking dead child blood instead of just going to Oregon from shrooms. Well, see, why do you think that they need to go to Oregon to get shrooms? Don't you think that they're elites and they have so much money they can just have some LSD, synthesized? They could have it gotten for them from a, federal capacity or something, if we're talking about or they could have anything synthesized, including probably, epinephrine, as we've shown before, can be synthesized. Come on. Even if it's not coming from children, maybe they do enjoy doing, adrenochrome. Conspiracy theories can be like drugs, says Brian Houston, director of Disaster and Community Crisis Center at the University of Missouri. If they are doing something for you psychologically, you often need more and more of that to get your fix. So the conspiracy theories just get crazier and crazier. The problem is that belief in something like adrenochrome and Q can translate into action or inaction. What? He says it's a problem if it can translate into either action or inaction. That's everything in existence can translate into action or inaction. Belief in misinformation, more importantly, acting on misinformation, always kills blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, is this guy saying anything? Extrusions of QAnon means the violence is always possible. Pizzagate illustrated that, where a guy went in and shot nothing but a computer. Are you fucking kidding me? Pizza fucking gate. That fucking guy, literally destroyed what could have been the only evidence that something was happening there. Yeah, fucking bullshit artist. All right, but there's even more common danger to believe people believing in conspiracy theories like adrenochrome harvesting. There has to be adrenaline harvesting because that's how we get adrenaline and epinephrine. It's not like we have to get it from humans, but the idea that you're saying it doesn't exist is out of this fucking world. All right, I think that's it. I don't think I can actually stand anymore. Yeah, are neglecting. Okay, what? No. And this is good. This is important to throw in there at the end. People who fall down the rabbit hole of QAnon are usually neglecting their real lives, jobs, social relationships in favor of spending hours and hours on the internet, working themselves into a kind of self-radicalizing frenzy about the state of the world that isn't congruent with reality. Says someone who doesn't agree with the things that they're reading. He's saying that somehow these people are reading. I mean, this guy has probably read and acted in a way so retarded Probably not the right word, unfortunately. But so ridiculously, you know, in times where he's like, yeah, Russiagate, it's going to happen. Russiagate, Russiagate, Russiagate. You know, he did it. He did all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's an evil tyrant. You know, while at the same time not realizing that it was completely incongruent with the reality that was actually facing him. I don't know. This is Jason Silverstein. You are a cocksucker extraordinaire. All right, so is there anything else? The dark virality of a Hollywood blood harvesting conspiracy. See, again, they're talking about blood harvesting. It's not blood harvesting. We're sure of that. And this is this. Oh, I can see why I picked this one. It's very odd. A centuries-old anti-Semitic myth is spreading freely on far-right corners of social media, suggesting a new digital dark age has arrived. All right, first off, I don't know how it's anti-Semitic. I'm sure they're going to tell us, but are you out of your fucking gourd? What are you talking about? And you're still wrong. It's not blood harvesting. The Dark Age, blah, 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 blah. A favorite topic of interconnected QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy communities, so-called adrenochrome harvesting, long predates these groups. It has, however, resurrected during the COVID-19 pandemic. And searches for adrenochrome in March, June, prevalent on TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit removed a dedicated adrenochrome subreddit. On Friday, the 31st, conspiracy planned to hold the first Child Lives Matter protest in Hollywood to expose child trafficking, advertising the event with references to adrenochrome. He said conspiracy theorists are holding a thing called Child Lives Matter. Why wouldn't it just be people who care about children? That's crazy. All right. Adrenochrome harvesting conspiracy theory is a potent example of hidden virality and the ways in which unpopular culture animates social media platforms outside the mainstream view. How do you know it's outside the mainstream view? How do you know, what if you're outside the mainstream view and you don't realize it? Named by researchers, hidden virality describes dominant content in specific pockets of the internet that are largely unseen by journalists and mass audiences, making them difficult for social media companies to identify and act upon. What, oh, you mean censor? The impact of hidden virality can't be stopped by retroactively banning a few thousand Twitter accounts. It is an iterative, mimetic phenomenon that outpaces terms of service. Even with early intervention, what are we saying here? All right. The lineages of a new blood libel. The most effective conspiracy theories are built around kernels of truth. Adrenochrome is a compound that occurs in the body, but about which little scientific research has been done beyond a few studies in the mid-20th century on whether it could play a role in schizophrenia, where they also stated that it obviously causes psychedelic hallucinations. So, come on. The question transfixed the writers, blah, 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 who were obsessed with mind-altering substances. To them, adrenochrome became a psychotropic akin to mescaline. Right about the first adrenochrome studies, Huxley described adrenochrome as a clue to what was being systematically followed. The sleuths, biochemists, psychiatrists, psychologists are on the trail, he wrote. Biologists didn't find much of interest. Says who? Do you know how useful adrenaline is? Because we definitely use epinephrine and adrenaline for so many useful things. All right. And if I could take it constantly, I might. You know, that is adrenaline. I don't know about adrenochrome, but I don't know. I've never taken it. But adrenaline can help you with some major issues, pain-related and back, dysfunction related and swelling and yeah. So anyway, nearly 20 years later, Thompson casts adrenochrome as a psychedelic that must be violently extracted from human glands. In his Fear and Loathing, the scene was immortalized by Johnny Depp, blah, 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 who Davis more one has drawn thousands of comments. All right. So, saying a lot of nothing. Thompson is explicitly invoked in what seems to be the earliest recorded post about adrenochrome harvesting. Jew ritual blood libel sacrifices adrenochrome harvesting. Then these same online communities. Jew ritual blood libel sacrifices adrenochrome harvesting. Within these same online communities, Pizzagate formalized and grew in 20... see, that's just crazy. How do you know that? In 2016, these same videos... But Pizzagate is real for the most part. So it was shared in a Pizzagate thread about the artist Maria and her spirit cooking ceremonies, which are insane. Wait. Are you just glancing over that? In 2016, this same video was shared in a Pizzagate thread about the artist Marina Abramovich and her spirit cooking ceremonies. Yeah, they're doing some of the weirdest fucking shit ever. Alright, the next several months saw increasingly outlandish claims online, particularly that Pixar Films' Monster Inc. was a cryptic reference to... It seems like it is. You think that it's not a reference to adrenochrome harvesting? It most certainly seems like it. Seems like if it was sigil magic, that they are pretty much just throwing it out there and being like, hey, we told you. Sorry. As some Pizzagate adherents entered the burgeoning QAnon community in 2017, they brought the adrenochrome conspiracy with them. So they're just making it all seem like they're all part of the same insane community when there's probably a grand amount of people who are just individuals. And they think this is happening, This is insane. These people, this person isn't even slightly dedicated to the idea of being objective. I don't know if it matters what else they said here. So here he's talking about the best way for platforms to fight back is to censor. Yeah. Yeah, this is a scary world we're living in. So, okay, here's one last one. Same kind of idea. When people feel like they have no control over their lives, like in the midst of a global pandemic, the comforting certainty of conspiracy theory seems increasingly attractive, says a fucking crazy person. Today I fell down a rabbit hole of rabid Trump supporters who are convinced COVID-19 is both a hoax and also Trump's greatest moment as a president. He acted decisively, apparently, while also knowing that COVID-19 is a Hollywood liberal elite cover-up. It's not that it's a hoax. It's that it's overblown past the state of proportion. It's got a 99.98% survival rate. The likelihood of getting sick if you're under the age of 50 is like even less than 99.98. The likelihood of getting sick under the age of 20 is, I think, near the 0% mark. It's just a foolish thing to have made into this massive thing where we're all being told how to act and behave. And frankly, I haven't, taken to it. I've just ignored everyone and everything about it. Alright, so, and it involves Celine Dion, New Zealand. I just became aware of massive scoops when I learned this. Bill Gates is a new stood down along with many others. LinkedIn, the rumors are falling apart. All these people are testing pot, all part of a cabal, a cult for the elite. Hi, clone, blah, 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 blah. Is she going to say anything ever? Buckle up, sheeple, get ready for the truth. On a website called Q, I found fellow patriots with a hard-on for the truth. With a hard-on? Like an erection for the truth? Alright, anyway. I was quickly introduced to a prevailing conspiracy theory around COVID-19. It's quite simple. Adrenochrome is a drug for liberal elite Hollywood made for actual human brain stem containing hormones from the adrenal gland. No. The adrenal medulla is not the medulla oblongata. You dumb fucking wretch. Right. Hillary Clinton is the one who manufactures it by torturing children in a pizza shop. If you order a cheese pizza, that's a code. Well, if you get $20,000 worth of cheese pizza, then yeah, maybe it is a code, you dumb Brit. Alright. Tom Hanks is addicted to adrenochrome, and he caught COVID-19 from the latest batch of tainted adrenochrome that came through Celine Dion, who was a high priestess from the Church of Satan. Well, maybe let's ring this back, right? Somehow, COVID-19 gets out of a lab in Wuhan. It affects all of the people who they're harvesting the adrenochrome from. The adrenochrome goes out and it gives everybody COVID-19. I mean, there's at least a series of, ladders to, work to that ideal. Maybe stupid, but I mean, I could write a story about it and it wouldn't, I could make it sound like it wasn't ridiculous. All right, so Tom Hanks signaled to the Hollywood liberal elite in his Golden Globes, signaling there would be a shortage of adrenochrome. Ellen has closed her studio audience because she's addicted as well. Heidi Klum is too, and so is Michael Rappaport. Why would they all be addicted, and why are you mentioning Michael Rappaport like he's even close to the same level as all these other people? But if the version doesn't appeal you, don't worry, I have more. You can basically choose your own conspiracy adventure. This is another false flag attempt to implicate the Great Awakening. So does that mean the Great Reset? The virus has been orchestrated to force universities to adopt learning management systems like Canvas and Blackboard and move to online teaching, ending schooling as we know it forever. Well, is that what's happened, you dumb broad? This was in 3/17, by the way. That's what it says up here, 3/17/2020. So that's basically what has happened so far. All right. COVID-19 will trigger the implementation of Global Economic Security and Recovery Act so the government can take your money. Are you talking about the Great Reset again? The World Economic Forum's Great Reset? Bill Gates, who is, a computer programmer, who is also a eugenicist, who is also a vaccine creator and killed a whole slew of people in India to the point where they no longer allow him into the country. Yeah, Bill Gates. A new world war. Yeah, I don't know about that so much. Iran, Italy? Are you stupid? They would threaten the world to preemptively inoculate their own population and then release a disease that would threaten the world. That's, again, kind of more like novelistic and not necessarily truth, but, there might be truth in it. A feminist cult of witches created a virus to kill all old white men. Well, it's to kill all old people in general, I guess, because that's, who it would kill if that's the case. But why is it a feminist cult of witches? Yeah, that's stupid. We never get Americans to agree to cut Social Security, but they won't be able to collect if they're dead. That's not untrue of, the fact that this is killing only the elderly, almost exclusively. Vaccinations caused it. Well, I won't say that this is for sure, but I know Dr. Drew, was supposed to get the vaccine, and like a few days later he had COVID, and he said that for whatever reason he wasn't able to get the vaccine. And he got COVID instead, unfortunately, and it upset him. I don't know if that's true. All right. COVID-19 was created by the media to sell newspapers, and everyone who has been infected is a crisis actor. That's ridiculously stupid. But, the idea that COVID-19 is being used by the media to sell their brand as not being a complete bullshit artist, which they have been. God did it because we're all too sinful. I mean, where's this woman finding any of these things? All right. Back in 2007, the Wuhan Institute of Virology published a paper about its research into SARS-like bat coronaviruses. When they were researching the SARS-like bat coronavirus, they were unhappy with the low rate at which they genetically altered it to make it infect human cells more effectively by giving it an HIV outer shell, which enabled the SARS-like coronavirus. So, I mean, she's saying something that is actually pretty well researched and more than likely, potentially the case. You dumb broad. Why are you, so stupid? This doesn't make any sense. A husband and wife spy team stole the virus from Canada's National Microbiology Lab. It's completely possible. I don't know enough about, it at all. Everything's possible until you can prove to me that it's a complete fabrication. I don't even know. Maybe Canada doesn't have a National Microbiology Lab. Anyway. There's no evidence for any of this. Okay, you're an idiot. In fact, most of it has been thoroughly debunked, but I would say that as a member of the fake news lamestream media, you absolutely would, you dumbass broad. You have no fucking clue what's going on in the world. Look at what this is saying to you. Look at this. Look at what this is saying. It's literally saying everything that has been rolling out, is, this part especially, the virus has been orchestrated to force universities to adopt, new learning management systems. It's literally happened. All right. Tom Hanks time. These things we can do all is following the advice of experts and taking care of ourselves and each other. No? Remember, despite all current events, I don't know, I'm an expert to myself. Why would I listen to experts when they're lying constantly and when I can go do my own research and find out much better information? There's no crying in baseball. Yeah, that's back when you were actually not a joke. Sorry. Xenophobia conspiracy theories are psychologists have explained why people will believe literally anything that's said on a forum by someone called Hillary Kills 66. Alright, see, so everything about this is just, it doesn't ring true. She's a charlatan. She's making things up in a way that's just false, and I just can't abide. Alright, so, I gotta say, I think that we did a pretty good little dive here on Adrenochrome. I think we've, shown where it comes from. We've shown, kind of why, if someone's saying one thing, that is that, they're harvesting blood, that's got very little to nothing to do with Adrenochrome. That seems kind of just like a foolish endeavor. So, I'm going to call it here. This has been a good little, stream. I got a good episode in here. And, it's almost good enough. I might even go throw it up over into YouTube. And frankly, it's a real decent. I'd say that we did a good job of making someone who was not aware of Adrenochrome what it was, and giving them at least some sense of the potential of it being a massive problem in the way that an insane kooky conspiracy theory person might pose it. So I'll leave it there. Have a good night or a good day, and thank you again for watching.